Hey, welcome back to Road to Global. This video is going to be about contact plays, when to use them, and how to do them effectively. So, let me paint the scenario. You're in a mid-round, you've got a bit of map control, but you want to convert that into hitting a site and taking it. You decide you're going to hit the site together as a team to maximize your chances of taking the site. So, you have two main options. One is execing the site, and one is doing a contact play or a pop. I'm going to lump the pops in with the contact plays for this because they're slightly different. You'll have a piece of util or flashbang just before you come out of your contact, before you take the contact in a pop. But it's very similar, so we'll group those two in together. So I'm going to paint out the contrast between these two different approaches, either execing or doing a contact play or a pop, by using a simple analogy. When you're execing, you are playing the exec game, and when you're doing a contact play or a pop, you are cheating the exec game. Now, what I mean by that is that the Ts and the CTs kind of have an implicit agreement that either one person is going to waddle into the site and take a dumbass gunfight on the T side, and the CTs will be able to hold that, and they don't have to worry about it too much, or there'll be a full exec, and the CTs will see a load of util flying over, before they have to take any contact, and then they'll be able to dump their defensive utility. That is playing the exec game, and it works sometimes, and it's awkward sometimes, and CTs can optimize for it if that's the only game they have to play. Now, if I introduce another option, which is going to be filled by the contact plays and the pops, where rather than playing the exec game, throwing that util or going in one at a time, you get a number of players in a tight group, 3 to 4, and you push up and you take contact on this first player where he's only expecting either one guy or he's waiting for utility, and you're going to be able to catch him off guard. So how this would look in practice is if you have 2 or 3 players walking up banana here and trying to take a duel on someone on site or someone here without throwing any util before, and this first guy is taking the angles, and the second guy here is going to be following up ready to trade if his teammate dies. Alright, so now I'm going to explain what makes a good contact play, and hopefully from that you should be able to see some of the advantages of contacts versus a traditional exec when you're trying to take a site. So the first thing is that you don't want to give away any info at all. If you're having people moving into a contact setup, you're going to be shifting in. The second thing is that you need multiple people, so you'd ideally have 3 to 4. You can do it with 2 if you're on limited numbers, but 3 to 4 is a good number if you have a full team alive. The third thing is that you want to have an extra guy, not inside that entry pack, holding util to be able to clear a strong angle or throw supportive util once they have already taken contact. For example, throwing a smoke on a choke point so that they can go around a corner and not have to worry about anything. The last thing that I'm going to say is that the first person here is going to be clearing all of these angles deliberately. So let's say there is no smoke CT here. I'm just going to wait for that. Alright, so magic. There's no smoke CT here. And now we're going to look to clear these angles like this. You see how I make no sound clearing this corner? I'm just going around. I'm taking my crosshair placement in the right spot, and I'm clearing this. Then the next angle would be this coffin one, which you can clear like this. And you've got to be careful. If you stand further back, you can clear this more carefully and then clear this one, which is the second one. And you just procedurally go around clearing all these angles. And while I'm doing this, my teammates are creeping up behind me. So if I take a duel in any of these spots where someone's holding an off angle like this, they'd have to deal with me, and then they'd instantly have 2 more people swinging into them, being able to trade me. So it makes it very good if the first person is making sure that he's giving himself the best chance of winning these gunfights, and then the second people obviously are ready to trade right behind it. Alright, so if you combine all of those 4 things, you'll be able to see that everyone will walk up in a tight pack, and you'll have a large number of people up in a very advanced position, much further up than the CTs will expect. Because if they haven't heard anything on banana, they'll be thinking maybe there's one guy here, and suddenly there's 3 in their face. Also, combining it with a slight bit of util will break up crossfires. So let's say, for example, you had one player playing in CT, and you had one player playing in this spot. If you had everyone running out straight away afterwards, as they should, once you've gotten the first piece of contact, you might run into this guy in CT and have to worry about that and get kind of mowed down by this guy. But if you have someone, for example, in a light contact play, just being ready to smoke this as soon as everyone else has gotten contact, dropping this smoke means you just have to start a step for a second, and then everyone can go out into the site and start taking these duels. I think adding all these little different bits onto the exec, onto the contact play, really makes it very potent and very difficult for CT setups to deal with, especially if they're holding their utility and are trying to play the exec game, like I was saying. So, contact players are going to be a little bit weird for you when you start off with. You're going to have to get a bit of a feel for them and see how they work and when they work, and just try and test it out in your own games. And then when you get a bit of an understanding as to how they can be useful, that's when you can start using them effectively. So I'd really just encourage you to go out and start trying them in your own games. Alright, so I'm just going to go back a minute and explain what I said about CTs potentially holding their util. And this is going to lead on to something which is a bit more of an advanced idea about T-sides, which is called conditioning. So, conditioning is essentially when the T's will do something over and over again, or a certain number of times, so that the CTs will start reacting to that thing that they're doing in advance. For example, if you exec B 3 times on Inferno in a row, they're going to start playing anti-exec, or start thinking up something that will be able to counter an exec. Now, if you can anticipate when they make that change, and how they're going to make that change, then you can start punishing them. Where this links to contact players and execs is that you can actually think about contact players and execs as two diametrically opposite things. Like I said earlier, you're either playing the exec game or you're cheating the exec game. Now the CTs need to work out what you're doing beforehand, and if you're cheating the exec game, they need to be playing a different game. They need to be playing the contact game, and if you're playing the exec game, then they need to be playing the exec game, otherwise they're just going to lose. If they're playing the right game, they're going to have an advantage most of the time. If they're playing the wrong game, they're going to be losing most of the time. That's how it works. So, I'm just going to explain the simple scenario of you've been execing all the time, and then you do a contact player. So, they're all holding their util. They're like, oh, we're going to hold our util for the last 40 seconds. We're going to block their exec. And suddenly, you're in their face with 4 people, and you're swarming the site. There's nothing they can do about it. They're done so. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So, you can see how putting a contact play in after you've done a bunch of execs is pretty good. But if you actually do it the other way around and do a load of contact plays, then what's happening? Every round you're walking up and you're doing this thing where you're like punishing them here, and then they're getting scared, you know? They're not holding on to their util anymore. They need to throw it all the time because they just keep getting punished and killed every round. So they're going to be using these smokes, and they're going to run out of their smokes, before the 40-second mark. So you'll be able to exec in the late round. If you try and intersperse these things back and forth and use this to play mind games with your opponents, with these two tools, which definitely work situationally very, very well, then you can really start punishing your opponents, and definitely even punishing organized opponents in the way that you're facing up against them. Okay, so to summarize, a contact play is a great mid-round option that involves pushing 3 to 4 players into an advanced position and then exploding and swarming the site off of your initial contact. A great contact play is one where 1, the CTs have no info on your whereabouts and how far up you are. 2, you have 3 to 4 players in that pushed up position. 3, you have an additional player who's ready to do some supportive util once you take that contact. And 4, you have a really sharp guy up front who's ready to take those aim duels and win the aim duels. Okay, so that's been the video. I hope you found it enlightening. And if you want to share it with any of your teammates or anyone you know who you think could learn a bit more about contact plays and doesn't know how to shift, then feel free to link them it. If you want to learn a little bit more about Execs, which we kind of touched on in this video, there's going to be a video down here that you can click on to see that immediately. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.